Hello friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts, and welcome to the office/craft room. Today I am going to share with you a couple of projects that I've been working on over the last several weeks. And I did record these a while back, so clothing will change in these. But the first project I am working on today are some gifts for the holiday season. Now, this required some planning, and I actually started with these gifts well back in July when I still had my garden growing. And most of the recipients already have their gifts, but if you are my children, I love you, but you need to click off of this video so you don't have any spoilers. The second project I'm going to be working on today is a wreath for my kitchen. I have a corner cabinet in my kitchen that I like to hang a Christmas wreath on, but I thought, you know what, I'd like to hang a fall wreath on there too. And I've looked, I couldn't find anything I liked, so I am going to be making my own small wreath for that corner cabinet. Those are the projects we're going to be working on today, so let's go ahead and get started. This summer I had an overabundance of herbs in my garden, and I decided early on that I was going to try to use them for gifts. And the jars I am working on right now, they are for my children. I have 3 different types of dehydrated herbs for them. I have some lemon, thyme, some chives, and some parsley. Now, I did dehydrate all of these. I got them all prepared, and this did require quite a bit of work over the summer months, but I think it's going to be a fun gift. I also have some parsley in the back behind all of those that are going to some coworkers. I'm just going to make sure that I've got those labels on squarely and get everything into separate piles so I can keep track of what goes into which gifts. For these next jars, these are going to my coworkers, and I want to pretty them up a little, so I'm going to be adding some fabric to the top. And I'm measuring 3 inches right now, so I'm going to find something in my kitchen that is about 6 inches around. And that is what I'm going to be using here. This bowl is almost perfect. We're going to go ahead and use that as a template to cut our fabric. I am going to begin cutting the templates for these jar covers by going to the wrong side, or the non-printed side of this fabric. Now, if you have fabric that is needing an iron, it is very wrinkly, you might want to do this before you do your cut. This is cotton fabric, so I am just going to use a fine point marker, go all the way around the edge of the bowl, and I did check to see how many I could put onto this side of fabric, and I could easily get 3 on there. I decided not to do it all at once, just in case this wasn't quite big enough, but it does turn out in the end. Now, what I am using here are called pinking shears. They are a special kind of scissor that has kind of a ridged edge, and that is to prevent the fabric from unraveling. And because this is going to have a raw edge, I don't want it to just unravel on whoever is getting the gift. So I'm using this to cut around my circular shape here. Now, I was trying to get this into camera so that you could see it, and it was really causing me quite a lot of problems. But in the end, we do get this circle cut out, and it looks wonderful, and I think it's going to fit perfectly. For this next step, I am going to be using some very thin cord. You could use twine or you could use ribbon, but this is what I had on hand. And to aid in this, I'm going to be using a rubber band. Now, this first attempt is an epic fail, and I decided to leave this in because I wanted you to see that it doesn't always work as you plan the first time. So I kept trying, and I finally eventually get it. But I feel like I should have maybe cut my fabric circles just a smidgen wider so that I had a little more to hook to. I also felt like the rubber band may have been needing to be placed onto the ring itself, not on the lower part of the jar under the ring. And that may have helped as well. But you'll see here, I did finally get it to actually sit where I wanted it to, and I'm just making sure that the pleats in the fabric are laying properly. It looks good, I'm happy with this placement, and then I will go ahead and cut some of my cord and string to tie around. So we're going to make a fairly long portion of cord here, I have a couple of things I want to do with it, so I want to make sure I've got plenty to use. Yes, there will be a little bit of waste, but I think it'll be okay in the end. I'm going to go ahead and just put a simple knot in this. I don't want any kind of bow or anything like that, just a simple double knot. And then I'm going to set that aside. I am tying this way because I am planning to put a tag on here, and I need the string for the tag. Now you'll see right here where that rubber band was attached, I'm just going to get right underneath that and slip that off. Now I just need to make 5 more. Now to build the tags for these jars that we just covered with fabric, I am going to be using my Cricut. And I am not an expert with my Cricut. I fumble through it every single time, so I will not show you tutorials on how I am doing this. But these were gifts from my coworkers that were given out right before our Thanksgiving break. So they are thank you gifts, and they are a little different than what I am giving to my children for Christmas. Even though they are similar items, I decided to gift them differently. Now, I love my Cricut machine. It is fabulous when it wants to work. Today was not one of those days that it wanted to work. I was having so much trouble getting the Bluetooth to link up with my computer that I eventually just slid the entire assembly over and plugged it in using the USB cord. You'll see that the Cricut has just finished up with the writing portion. It is now getting ready to cut the tag out. I only do one tag to begin with. It is my sample, and that way I can make sure that it is cutting the way I want it to. And this one turned out perfectly, so I am going to go ahead and make 5 more. Now that I have my tags prepared, I am going to add them to the fabric covered jars. I'm going to take the right hand string and thread it through the paper tag, and then I'm going to tie a very simple knot. I want to make sure I'm not tying that too tightly because that will rip right through that paper. So I want to be very careful right here. And then I'm going to make a simple little bow. I don't want to tighten anything again because it will rip through that tag. So I want to be very cautious when I'm doing this, not to go too tautly. And then because those strings are a little bit on the long side, I'm going to go ahead and trim up that cord. I want both ends to be about the same length, so we'll just give them a quick trim, and then we're going to go ahead and work on the other 5 jars. I love how these turned out. So as I speed run through the tying process on the rest of these tags, I am going to talk to you about how we are putting these gifts together. So the jars I'm working with right now are going to my coworkers. All 6 of those will go into 6 bags. And then I have some garlic that I'm going to be adding to each bag, along with 3 of the bags that are going to get these cute little figurines. Now that's going to be for my coworkers, and then the other stuff goes to my kids. And I think I'll separate that out here in just a minute. Now that I have everything ready and I have separated everything out into what goes into each gift, I am ready to assemble. We're going to start with that garlic that is homegrown from my garden, and then the parsley jar that we added the fabric cover and the tag to, and this is one of the ones that gets the figurine. Then I'm going to be adding the tissue paper. I add 2 pieces of tissue paper, and in order to get that to lay nicely, I pinch it right in the center, flip it while I'm picking it up, and it fits into the bag perfectly to cover everything up. Now I do want to cut a small piece of ribbon here so that I can tie these handles together, and I chose something that was more festive for the Thanksgiving holiday, and I'm just going to tie that up and then trim up those ribbon ends so that they are the same length. Now I do want to mention that I use brown paper bags for a reason. I am using those because they can be reused by their recipient, and there's nothing on them, so they can use them for any occasion or holiday or whatever purpose they need them for, and I just make them more festive using the ribbon and the tissue paper. So I've begun working on my children's gift bags for Christmas. They each get 4 of these wood top jars. With the addition of the 3 dried herbs I mentioned earlier in the video, they're also getting some red peppers. They're also going to get garlic cloves like everyone else, and I don't show it in this video, but they will get a box of chocolates in here, a special one that we usually share this time of year. So this is a good example right here of how I do the tissue paper. I hold it in the center and flip it, and that makes it perfect every single time. I'm going to add a ribbon to the top of this one, just like I did with the ones for my coworkers. This time we're going to be using something with a little more red and green, and I may even add a tiny little artificial bow of greenery to this on the handle so that it's a little more festive. And I couldn't be happier with how these turned out. They're just beautiful. I know that everyone's going to love that it's homegrown produce and handcrafted items inside. I got 8 bags of goodies here, and I'm just really happy with the results. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next project. Now for this next project, I am going to be needing some supplies. I've got my glue gun right here, along with some wire, some ribbon, the wreath, which is a small grapevine wreath, some picks, a pair of scissors, and a pair of wire cutters or side cuts. When I am working with florals like this, I try to dry fit first before I wire or glue anything in. That way I can see what it's looking like. I just realized I hadn't plugged in my glue gun yet, and I'm definitely going to need that. But here I am breaking these picks down just a little bit. They are a little bit long for me, and I want them to be a little bit shorter so I can get them into this grapevine wreath. Now this wreath itself is not a regular shape. It's not circular, it's oval, and I have a top and a bottom, so I've got to be really careful to make sure I don't switch that or move that while I am putting these picks into the wreath. I'm just checking to see what looks good here and what I think is a better balance before I start gluing and wiring that stuff down. You'll see I just tore apart a single pick there. It had 3 stems in it, and I was able to break that down so I can kind of spread that out across the wreath more evenly. I could only find one of them, and sometimes that is the case. So if you can tear the pick apart and use it in multiple places, go ahead and do that. I do have one here in a minute that is not a multi-stem pick, and I do have to cut that one apart with the wire cutters. And I'm liking how this is looking right now, but I'm not guaranteeing that this is what it's going to look like in the end. I do change quite a bit of it up here in just a minute. But I'm about ready to start gluing down everything and getting it into place. Now this is the one right here that I was talking about. This one is not a separate stem. You have one stem and all the picks are coming off of it. And so I only had one of those as well, and I wanted to use it in multiple places, so I did have to use the side cuts to break that down. Now this right here, I am just using the leaves off of it. So I'm going to snip them off right at the base and have a single leaf. I do not want the red berries in here. I felt like the red was too much for this arrangement. And I am ready now to go ahead and start putting this together. Here we go, glue in hand. Now this very first pick right here, it doesn't really require a lot of glue because it has such a long stem. I probably should have trimmed that one up as well, but I did choose to leave those a little bit longer. I am not liking how they're kind of fluffed up. I'm trying to get them to go a little flatter, and then I am adding in these little brown leaves here. The glue is crazy right now. I have it on the hot setting, and I probably should have had it on the low temp setting. So it is really running. You can see it got onto my tabletop there, but luckily I work on a glass top table, so it really doesn't affect anything. It just comes right off. But we're just going to continue gluing these brown leaves on to where I am hoping they will go. And then at this point I decide I better get these big ones in here. They take up a lot of space, and I want to make sure that I have the space for them. And these, because of the pear on them, are a little bit trickier. I want one of the pears to go towards the center of the wreath and the other one to go kind of towards the outside. Now it can't go completely towards the outside because, like I said, this is going on a cabinet in a corner, and I do need to be able to open the doors on the other doors next to it without it hitting the wreath. So I do have to be aware of that, and we're just adding some more of these leaves here. And I decided to go ahead and take that glue off the tabletop. It was bugging me that it was there. It was totally dry, but it was bothering me that it was there. So I am getting the other pair into this project. You can see it's hanging to the side pretty far, but I do change that by the end. And we're just going to continue adding all of these picks in here. I've got some of these large berries here. I really liked the color on them, and I was really hoping to find another one of those, but like I said, I found one. I was able to tear it apart so I can use it in multiple spots on the wreath. But we're just about done here. I'm going to add a few more of these kind of brown coppery colored leaves, and then I'm going to go ahead and hang this in my kitchen. The wreath turned out beautifully, even better than I expected, and I love the color combinations in here, very autumnal, and I just decided to hang this with a very thin gingham ribbon, and it is hooked on the inside of my cabinet door with a 3M hook. And I love how it turned out. So it is a little bit bulky, and the light hitting it from above is a little bit shadowed as it comes to the bottom, but I do love the way it looks. It complements my colors in my kitchen very well, and I'm very happy with it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about the projects that I worked on today, leave those in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We'd love to have you as part of our community, and we hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.